Hey guys, welcome back again. And in this video, we will start off with the very basics concept. Before I give you the context, like what are we exactly doing here, let me just show you the first thing. Today, I posted a poll in our community asking them to choose between these three options. So my goal was to introduce you guys to React server components because this is one of the concept in React that I was researching a lot because there were a lot of fuzz online, and then there were a lot of debates going on in many forums, and I really wanted to learn more about that, and then I did. So once I got my research done and my once I got my all my doubts cleared on React server components, I wanted to introduce you that particular concept to you guys. So before that, I wanted to make sure that you guys are at least familiar with SSR and then CSR, basically the server side rendering and then client side rendering. So I actually made a poll. So I asked you guys, like, if you guys know SSR and CSR, and do you want me to like directly jump into React server components, or else do you want me to go from the basics? So these are the things that I got. These are the responses I got, and then I actually didn't include responses from our Discord server and then Telegram server because it would just be like putting up everything on the screen here. So, and then the reason why I'm doing this is because whenever I post result, right, many people would ask me like, we in our group we just have like so and so votes, and then the majority is something else. But let's say the majority is for option 2, but you're saying you're going ahead with option 3. The reason is we sum up all the response we get. We not only consider one group, we consider all our community group. That's the reason I'm actually putting up all the 3 WhatsApp group, the responses that I have, so that you guys can actually see. We got the majority vote for make a video on render and other phases of React. Okay, don't worry, I'll be making videos on all 3. Okay, first we'll make the basic, the render and other phases of React, and then we'll go to SSR and CSR, and then we'll jump onto React server components. Regardless, I'll be writing a blog on React server components, so do make sure to read that if you're very curious about it. Okay, so we'll start off with the basics today. That is how to render, how does React render, and then the other phases of React. This is not exactly a basic thing, but it requires you to visualize things. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to show you. So if I move on, okay. So visualize whatever I'm going to explain. I'm going to draw that here as well, but I want you guys to visualize things as well. Okay, it should not be like one way. It should be 2 ways. Okay, the first thing is you guys should have heard about something called render, right? So if you're a developer who started from class components, you used to write like this render component, render method and everything. Similarly, in function we don't do that. In function component we just return the JSX, and then React will take care of that, right? So you guys have heard about renders, but it's okay if you don't know what exactly render means and then how it works. But at least you know, right? You've heard about render. That's the important part. Okay, so there is a term here called render. Okay, that's the important stuff, render. And then what is the next term that you've heard about in React? The popular term in React that we hear usually is virtual DOM, right? I'm gonna just say VDOM here, but that means virtual DOM. Okay, so popular term we hear about React is virtual DOM. But what exactly is the virtual DOM? Like, why do we need it? Like, I mean, no idea, right? I know like many people here, like almost 50% of you might know the difference, like, and might know what is the purpose of these things in React. But I have some 50% of you guys, even though you are working in React, might not know exactly why do we need this, or exactly what is React, or what is it solving and everything, right? So today we'll look into that. So let's get started. So I'm gonna just remove this. We don't need it here. We'll just rewrite it again later. Okay, so the first thing that you guys want to know or understand in React is, what is the purpose of React? Very important. What is the purpose of React? The purpose of React was to simplify DOM updates. Okay, so make that clear first. The purpose was to simplify DOM updates. Okay, so if you click a button, if you type something on the screen here, or if you move your mouse like this, if you drag and do anything, DOM should be updated. Because see, let's say I move this text to here, right? Now you can see the updates there, right? If I move the text to left side, you can see the updates on the screen. So in order to update this one, the DOM has to get updated, right? What is DOM actually? DOM is nothing but a hierarchical representation of your HTML content. Okay, so it's nothing complex. So whatever the HTML tags you have, it identifies which element is the parent, which element is the child, and then connects a link between them. So this link is very important because it helps the browser to easily parse the relationship and then update the content. Okay, for example, if I'm moving this purpose text like this, like insanely, okay, so this purpose text should be a child of another element, right? So, and that element should be a child of another element. Similarly, HTML would be the top. Okay, so the browser can easily go down. Okay, it can easily go down because it knows that HTML will be the top parent. That HTML will have another child, that is body. Body will have another child. That child can have another child, which will be the parent of this text here. So the browser can easily go down in a path to find the element of this, and then it can update the position so that I can see if I move this to right, I can see it in the right. If I move this to left, I can see it in the left. Okay, that's the DOM update. Okay, what DOM updates happen. And trust me guys, if you do it manually, it becomes really slow. It becomes really cumbersome. Okay, it takes a lot of time. So React came up with this approach. Basically, the purpose of React invention was to simplify that, and then simplify the DOM updates and then do it efficiently. So how does this do happen? The first thing is simplify it by abstracting things. So basically what happens is React will abstract a lot of things for you. What do you mean by abstract? When I say abstract, it will do all the hard work, and it will give you many syntaxes and then many functions or something where you can use them and then just define your work in a very easy way. Okay, so basically you don't have to do any configuration. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just have to define your logic, and then you have to just say like, hey, if a user clicks on this button, do this. You just have to tell them. You just have to declare like what should happen if a certain event occurs. So if a user clicks on a button, what should happen? If a user drags this mouse, what should happen? If a user enters something, what should happen? You define that, and React will handle the update. So that is simplifying the update. What is efficient update? Okay, so the first thing is, if you do it manually, right? If you update the DOM manually, you have to update everything. Okay, it's not like, oh, you're only updating one certain element and that will be updated in the DOM. It's not like that. Okay, so basically the browser updates every single thing in its view basically. So if whatever you're seeing here, okay, if you do it normally using a DOM update, every single element will be updated, because browser thinks like, okay, so all the elements are being updated and I have to show them the updated data. That's the reason it's very slow, really slow. Okay, it updates like everything. So we don't want that, right? So if I have, let's say here I have an element, and then similarly here I have an element, and here I have an element, and here I have an element. So if this element, let's say I have a button here, let's say I have a button here. So if I click this button, right, and then if this element gets updated, I want to update in the DOM only this element. I don't have to update these. I don't even have to touch these three elements, right? So, but that doesn't happen when you do the update to real DOM directly. Real DOM updates everything, thinking that it has to show the updated data. You can't blame it, obviously, right? So what React does is, React came up with an approach like, okay, why can't I get all the updates from you? Okay, basically get a list of updates from you, and then why can't I update it at once? And I'll update only the required amount of element, only the element that has been changed. That's where the virtual DOM was invented. That's where the virtual DOM concept was invented. VDOM. Okay, so the concept is simple, guys. So remember one thing. So however you're gonna update the DOM will just do all the update. Like it will update everything in its screen. So if you update, let's say you have 100 changes. Okay, let's say you have 100 changes to be made, and if you do it directly, DOM updates 100 times. Very inefficient. What if you can collect all those 100 changes and update it at once? Very efficient, isn't it? So in one single update, you will incorporate 100 changes. Isn't that good? Or you want to make 100 updates for 100 changes. is that good? The first one, right? If you choose the second one, I don't know what kind of developer you are, but obviously the first one is efficient. Okay, so then that's what happens here. So what React does is, let me remove this purpose. Yeah. So that's where React DOM comes in, the virtual DOM. Sorry, not React DOM, it's virtual DOM. So what virtual DOM does is, here you'll have your React application, our app. I'm gonna say wrap, your React app, wrap. Yeah. Okay. So now what happens is, whenever you make an update, right? Whenever you make an update, React will not update the DOM. React will not let you touch the DOM directly. It will send all the updates to virtual DOM. Okay, it will send all the updates to virtual DOM. Okay, now the virtual DOM will take a list of, basically it will just check like how would the DOM look like if you incorporate these changes. So what are the elements it has to change? Okay, so because let's say this is your component, right? This is your app, right? So virtual DOM, okay, let's say this is the component that is being changed, right? Let's mark that as red. Okay, so this is the components that are being changed, right? So React virtual DOM will incorporate that change. Okay, first it will incorporate that change by itself, and then it will compare how does it look for the real DOM. So now what is the element that it has to update? Only this one, right? So all these elements remains the same. Okay, so now it will actually update it. Later then it will collect all those changes and it will update it at once in a given interval of time. Okay, and here's the coolest part about virtual DOM. Let's say you send an update to this element as well. So let's say we'll mark this as blue. Okay, let's say you send an update to this element as well, but let's say there's this data. Okay, let's just keep some text here so that you can differentiate. Let's say we have some text here. Let's say we have 0 here, and then we have 1 here, 1 here. Okay, now here we are trying to update. We're trying to update 0 to 1. But here I'm just keeping 1 as this. I'm not updating any number, but I'm marking this as update because this happens whenever you render, right? We call this as re-renders. Sometimes you send extra update which actually isn't modified at all. Okay, so now what virtual DOM does is it will compare, is these two same? Okay, it will compare whether the changes in the virtual DOM and the real DOM are different. Okay, so which is different here? This one is different, right? But this one remains the same. So this change will be dropped. So this change will be dropped. This won't be made. This won't be made. This won't be like sent to the real DOM. Only this changes will be sent to the real DOM. That's where React shines. React not only helps you to simplify the DOM update, but it efficiently updates it. It not only collects all your changes and do it at once, but also it checks whether all the changes that you're sending is actually valid or not. If it's invalid, there is no point of updating it, right? So if React updates even this one, then what's the use? It is a waste of resources, right? Waste of time, waste of resources, waste of this performance bottleneck increases, right? So React takes care of everything here. Okay, so this phase, right? This phase of comparing and then updating only required changes, this phase is known as commit. Oops. COMMIT. Okay, this phase, guys, is known as commit. Okay, render is where your changes are listed or updated to virtual DOM. Commit is where the changes that are in virtual DOM are updated to real DOM. Got the difference? Right. When you render, you're not directly updating the real DOM there. You're updating the virtual DOM. But when you commit, you update the real DOM. Okay. So in render phase, you can send as much as duplicate updates you want. Okay, such as this. You can send any number of updates you want. But in commit, only the valid updates will be made. That's the reason you hear many senior developers doesn't care much about re-rendering. I mean, it's not like in an extensive level. Okay. Because I've actually made a video on that as well. You guys can check it out. I can link it in the I button there. Okay. So you don't have to make re-renders like every single time. Alright guys. So as I was saying, you don't have to worry about re-rendering. Okay. Because when you click a button, right, sometimes only some components might, let's say parent get updated. If parents are updated, the child inside this also gets re-rendered in React. That's the way, that's how React works. But you don't have to worry about that. Even if same changes are sent to virtual DOM, the React will compare with the real DOM. Only then, only the valid changes will be sent. Okay. Now this is known as commit phase. Okay. But now coming to the render phase. Render. So as I told you, whatever the updates you make in your React app will be sent to virtual DOM. That page is known as render. But when is this update sent? That's important. Is there any time frame? Like for every 30 seconds we send an update, or for every 1 minute we send an update? Is there any intervals like that? No. That doesn't make any sense, right? For if you send updates for every 30 seconds, I can just open up my React app and I can just keep chilling, and then I can see React just using my computer resources to update itself when there is no update at all. So what React does is, React says, whenever you want me, I'll update it. What is that? What does that mean? So there's a thing called triggers. So React says, right, React says that whenever you trigger me, I'll update it. So how can a React get triggered? So trigger in a sense like turning on a motor or something. So when you turn on a motor, you supply the current to the motor. So the current hits the motor and then it triggers to work, right? Something like that. So you have to trigger it. So how do you trigger it? With the help of state. You guys have heard about this. State. Use state or this dot set state, those things. State. So state, this is why state is considered as sacred in React. State and actually props. I mean, props are ultimately states, but states and props. And also one more thing, that is force update. I'll tell you about force update as well. Okay, so state, props and force update. State in React is considered as this one, sacred. Okay, so what do I mean by sacred? Because state has a different really sorry for the background noise. I really can't do anything about it, guys. Sorry for that. State is considered as sacred. Okay, it is like a unique independent variable or constant. It's just a simple variable and constant, guys. It's just holding a data. But React treats it differently. Okay, React has some respect to it. Okay, React, I'm being like very explaining guys in layman terms. Okay, I'm not being very technical here. Okay, and what happens is React keeps an eye on this state, props, and force update. All right, coming back. Okay, so state and props are basically a placeholder for data, right? So they're just placeholders. They hold whatever data you provide. So what React does is React keeps them separately. When I say separately, I mean visualizing it. Okay, don't think like that's how React is structured. No. Okay, I mean like visualize it. React treats them very with high honor, so it keeps them separately, keeping an eye on them. So if either one of these things changes, so whichever the component, this is important, whichever the component that is dependent on that state will be updated. Okay, so if you have something like this, so let's say you have a component here, okay, with the state called count. Okay, state called count. And then you have one more component that is a child of this. Okay, that's a child of this. Now this state count, this parent, right, this component is dependent on this state count. Okay, now let's say this count gets updated. This count was initially let's say how much? Initially 0, now it is 1. Now this will get updated. Okay, this will be updated. Now since this is a child of this particular component, even this will be rendered as well. But don't worry, this won't be actually committed. Okay, this will be just rendered, it won't be committed because there's no change in this. You can avoid this phenomenon using something called memo, but that's not the scope of this. Okay, but this will be rendered as well. Both parent and child will be rendered. Why? Because you can see the parent is dependent on the state. So what React assumes is that, okay, since parent is updating, the child might also get updated because child might be dependent on parent right now. Okay, this child is dependent on this parent is dependent on this state, so all these get updated. But it will only be rendered. Okay, it won't be committed. The commit only happens to parent, because parent is directly dependent on the state and it is using that value, but child is not using that value. So child won't be committed, only it will be rendered. Okay, so that's how trigger happens. So whenever state and prop changes, that will act as a trigger. Okay, trigger to update the state, which will trigger the React app to render. Okay, but if you don't update the state, then there won't be any trigger, so React won't render. React will be idle. React will be like, okay, no job for me, so I'm gonna just chill. Okay, then what is force update? Force update is a function. Okay, it's not a value, it's a function from React package itself. But it is not recommended unless and until you want to forcefully render all the changes, like basically everything, all your components. Okay, and this is used very rarely, and I've seen people misuse this one as well. But I'm going to tell you one thing: 99.99% of the time you don't need force update. Basically, you don't need it at all. I haven't seen actually senior devs or many good React devs recommending force update to be used. Even React devs doesn't recommend you that. React dev says that it's just a fail-safe mechanism. Use it if you know what you're doing. Okay, I mean, it's not like a deal breaker or anything. It's not like your application will just explode or something, but it's just a very bad practice to use. Okay, basically to just update, like basically render all your changes and will commit it. Okay, so with that said, this is the basic steps, guys. Okay, render happens when there is a trigger. So trigger is triggered when there is a state update, props update, or force update. Okay, and when you render, everything will be sent to virtual DOM, not the real DOM. Okay, when you send to the virtual DOM, React will compare the difference between the virtual DOM contents and then the real DOM contents. So then whatever the changes are different, only that changes will be sent to the real DOM, and that process is called commit, not render. Whatever you render, it's for virtual DOM. Whatever you commit is for real DOM. Got it? So this is the basic steps, guys, and don't worry about it. We'll learn about how server-side rendering works and everything. This entirely is known as client-side rendering. Okay, this happens, why? Because this whole thing happens in a browser. Okay, this entire thing here is known as client-side rendering. Okay, we'll look into server-side rendering maybe next video. Okay, and this is entirely known as client-side rendering. Okay, so with that said, thank you so much, guys. If you have any doubts, let me know. And at last, before actually closing this video, one last thing: if you're not in our Discord community yet, do join our Discord. I'm going to tell you why. Because we interact there a lot, and then I personally keep posting many of my learnings there. You can see I just posted server components today, like a TLDR content here. We just post like even the community does that, like whatever we learn today or whatever we learn in that day or in something that we came across, right? Like it's a good, let's say it's a good thing to know. If it's interesting, we post a summary here so people can also learn about it. And then we also have some more thing like job posting, books, blogs, another thing. You can also come there and then look into that. Okay. So, and also one more thing, I'm doing this. We are actually doing something called a free mentorship. So if you're someone who loves to build projects, especially right now it's just full stack development with React, Node.js and everything. So if you are someone who wants like guidance to build a project, okay, so let us know. You can join Discord and drop a message there, or you can just ping us over like in WhatsApp. You cannot ping. I would say come to Discord and then ping us because it's very easy to discuss there. Okay, so let us know. I personally have a project planned for you guys. So, and I'll be mentoring that for you. Okay. So, but the thing is, you have to be serious. It's not like you just accept for 2 days and then you just disappear. It's not like that. You have to be available. I won't force you guys to work every day like 5 to 6 hours. Okay. But we'll work on weekly basis. Okay. For weekly, you have to spend at least 3 to 4 hours per week. For 7 days, you have to spend at least 3 to 4 hours, something like that. Okay. So I'll be guiding you throughout the project, and you have to build it. We'll also do it like a production way itself. We'll have all the Jira board set up. Jira or any other tools. Okay, so you'll be collaborating with others as well. You'll be opening pull request, and I'll be reviewing your code, giving you feedbacks, and then you'll integrate those feedbacks. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn something that unimaginable things as well, like code review is especially one of those parts. Okay, so with that said, thank you so much, guys. We'll meet again in the next video. Bye. Take care.